world's largest and most deadly plagues. The deadliest pandemics in recorded history were caused by a single bacterium, Yersinia pestis, a fatal infection otherwise known as a plague. So I'm going to inform you about some of the world's worst plagues, how they were caused, and what we did to stop them. Today we'll cover the Black Death, the Great Plague of London, and the Plague of Justinian. The Black Plague, otherwise known as the Black Death, was a large viral outbreak that occurred in Europe in the year 1347. The Black Death hit Europe, and the medical powers at the time were very weak. They had no concept of how to control a viral outbreak like this one. Due to that fact, in just 4 years, the virus took over 200 million lives. As for how to stop the disease, people still had no scientific understanding of the contagion, but they knew that it had something to do with proximity. That's why forward-thinking officials made the decision to put all citizens in quarantine. At first, sailors were held in their ships for about 30 days, which became known as the Vietnam Law. As time went on, they were forced in isolation for 40 days. Even before the death ships pulled into a port, many Europeans heard rumors of the Black Plague that was carving a deadly path across the trade routes near the Far East. Indeed, in the early 1340s, the disease had struck China, India, Persia, Syria, and Egypt. The Black Death was terrifyingly contagious. Even the touching of clothes could spread the virus. The virus is terrifying efficient at people who were perfectly healthy when they went to bed at night could be dead by morning. Now that we discussed the Black Death, we will now talk about the Great Plague of London. London never really recovered after the Black Death. The Black Plague resurfaced roughly every 20 years from 1358 to 1665. 40 outbreaks in 300 years, and with each new plague epidemic, 20% of men and women and children living in the British capital were killed. The Great Plague of 1665 was the last one of the worst plagues of the centuries-long outbreaks, killing 100,000 Londoners in just 7 months. All public entertainment was banned, and victims were forcibly shut into their homes to prevent the spread of the disease. Red crosses were painted on their doors along with the plea for forgiveness, "Lord, have mercy upon us." By the early 1500s, England imposed the first laws to separate and isolate the sick. Homes stricken by the plague were marked with a bale of hay strung to a pole outside. If you had an infected family member, you must carry a white pole when you were out in public. Cats and dogs were believed to carry the disease, so there was a wholesale massacre of hundreds of thousands of animals. This was the worst outbreak of the plague in England since the Black Death of 1348. London lost roughly 15% of the population, while 68,569 deaths were recorded in the city. The true number was probably over 100,000. Other parts of the country also suffered. Rats carried fleas that caused the plague. They were attracted to the city streets filled with rubbish and waste, especially in the poorest areas. Those who could, including lawyers, doctors, merchants, fled the city. Charles II and his party left in July for Hampton Court and then Oxford. Parliament was postponed and had to sit in October at Oxford, the increase of plagues being so dreadful. Court cases were also moved to Westminster to Oxford. Now that we discussed the Plague of London, we will now talk about the Plague of Justinian. The Plague of Justinian arrived in Constantinople, the capital of Byzantine Empire, in 1541 CE. It carried over the Mediterranean Sea from Egypt, a recently conquered land by the tribe Emperor Justinian, in grain. Plague-ridden fleas hitched a ride on the black rats that snacked on the grain. The plague decimated Constantinople and spread like wildfire across Europe, Asia, North Africa, and Arabia, killing an estimated 30 to 50 million people, perhaps half of the world's population at the time. These strains of plagues are endemic in the rodent population all around the world. Today they are just as deadly as the strains that caused the pandemics. Now I would like to close with the following statements. We have specifically looked at the Black Plague, the Great Plague of London, and the Plague of Justinian. I hope that I have successfully informed you about some of the world's deadliest outbreaks. Overall, all of these outbreaks have been cured for all of the people today with vaccines and treatments.